And now, a short radio play in 3 parts. Avalon. Part 1. Guinevere.
Lancelot. A boy's eyes. A boy's spirit. Always rushing off to rescue me, even when I did not wish it. And for those times I did, you possessed a man's eyes then. They burned in ancient fire. How warm you made me. When I was apart from you, I did overthink. I chastised myself. I scolded you in my mind. Your kind attempts to know my feelings, I resented. Who were you? These were my private thoughts. The weight of the kingdom often on them, often suffocating. And in those times I could not breathe, you solicited for my breath. Why would you even ask? What made you care? You were a terrible nuisance. Your affection could be overwhelming at times, good Sir Knight. And there were greater matters at stake than a queen's heart. Could you not see? Even Camelot in bloom knew terrors. And you were brave facing them, which just angered me all the more. Why did you persist? What was so fascinating that was worth betraying your king? What mattered more? My ladies-in-waiting called you dog, my faithful pet, as if I were somehow deaf to their gossiping whispers, any more than I was blind to your persistent attentiveness. A queen is not to be gossiped about. I pushed you away, literally exiled you, thinking I couldn't stand your presence. What a relief when you had gone. Tensions had lifted. The salacious whispers of you returned to the normal domestic whispers of costs of things and servant grousing. Despite your obvious overtures, you were a decent man, Lancelot. One who did not deserve their ridicule. Your heart was every bit as true as your king's. At least, both your hearts were then. Arthur was my perfect match. His concern was the kingdom, same as my own. He was a willing slave to the duties it took to preserve it, as was I. He was a good and noble man, honor bound to a chivalrous code with a zealot's wrath. We lived as we were destined to. Visits to the marriage bed were state function required of king and queen. And those visits were treated as such, even those rare private encounters. How would Camelot survive without an heir? Who would be left to raise the standard of our realm or charge into battle with our coat of arms brightly painted on his or her shield? But we had no family to make that crest for, did we, husband? The daughter of Leo Denegrance, the son of Pentagram. What a picture it would have made. When first you saw me in father's court, oh, how he wanted me. I only knew you by reputation. Father spoke of you in terms he reserved for saints. You were a mystical being, somehow alive in our time, surrounded by wizards and granted claim to rule by a water goddess. Father did everything but lay palm leaves at your feet when you entered Scotland. I've never been to such a silent feast. Even the musicians seemed muted, all hushed in your divine presence. Those near me chanced to whisper how you kept looking at me throughout the night. I was on display. That was the point. We'd done it before for lesser suitors. I'd tell them as much, and well, Father would reprimand me for weeks on end at the loss of another alliance. But that night, the fear was within me. You finally asked me to dance, and I stammered. Your calloused hand gently took mine and led me to the floor, though I had not accepted your offer. The song began, and you tripped over my dress. The entire court was frozen until you laughed. The timbre of it still peals in my memory. It's lived there for years. You offered me scarce other laughter to replace it. Old man Merlin warned you I was trouble. You didn't care, and I liked that stubbornness about you. It was attractive. Then, anyway. Someone should have warned me about you. Alas, my clumsy godling, I wanted you as well. We filled the roles of king and queen, perhaps too much to the brim. We spoke of politics and campaigns. We planned battles and feasts. Our lives were for the kingdom. Little else, not even a dance. You wanted me until you had me. And then you wanted more. I can lie in my bed, high in that castle tower, and see the stars out the western window. You never stayed long enough to appreciate their glow. And on one lonely night, I realized this is how Lancelot must have felt when someone he simply wanted to be with had so many more important matters to consider. He offered me friendship, and when I finally permitted myself the memory of his efforts to attain it, I wondered why I ever turned him away. Oh, yes. He was in love with me. I would have to quell his urges when I brought him back from exile. He would have to be satisfied with our friendship, nothing more. I was warned that the exile had driven him mad. After the way I treated him, being away from me should have rendered him sane. He returned with more scars on his body and more scratches on his sword, but the bleakness of his experiences in the world did not snuff out those eyes or that spirit. He greeted me a friend as ever. And in that moment, the swell of emotion untied every knot my worry made. My mind could not outrun my instinct. I allowed myself to feel, and with him in his presence, the feeling was honest and uncomplicated. The rumor started immediately, despite no flame to be fanned. He honored his vow of friendship to me, for the most part. I'm not certain many of his other friends received flowers or notes simply to tell me of a happy thing, but these were appreciated. Lancelot was the husband I wanted you to be. I invited him into our marriage bed because I loved him as such. Where was your rage, Arthur? Was the issue of such little consequence compared to the governance of Camelot that your curiosity was not even piqued? Only when your conniving bastard Mordred put his game into play did you care about your wife sharing her being with another man. Only when it affected the proud piousness of Camelot could you bother to care. Husband, you could not even look me in the eye or lend me an ear to explain. No, you dispassionately read aloud the chivalrous code and assigned the punishment be met. You condemned me for adultery, but what of your lust, Arthur? You who craved conspiracy and war. Attacking all those who attack Christendom was not enough for you, Arthur. You reveled in Mordred's schemes, even when you knew he was plotting against you. Because you found your best companionship in enemies, not in wizards, wives, or friends. You spent your life looking for something to fight against. Always the next quest, always the next crusade. Peace in the kingdom? I swear it unsettled you. A wife who loved you without condition bored you. I had to become your enemy to see your passion again. Stubborn. They warned you about going into battle against Mordred. There were omens, there was common sense, there were other solutions. Now all of it is gone. Stubborn. I am the exiled queen of a ruined kingdom. What upside-down world is this? I wait to die in the sterile peace of a nunnery. My husband is dead. And the lover who rescued me from his punishment and delivered me safely here, the finest knight in all the land, has been branded an outlaw for it. I lie in this cold bed, staring out that small window. I can see no stars. Wait. I see a horseman on the horizon. He is racing towards me. Have you come to free me, good friend knight? Have you come at last to take me home?
Thus concludes part 1 of Avalon. Which character from Arthurian legend will speak next? Stay tuned for parts 2 and 3 later in this broadcast.